Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. Today we bring you some news, royals in shock. Prince William finally exposes Camilla's truth amid King Charles's health update. The silence that descended over the chandeliered halls of Buckingham Palace in the early years of 2025 seemed unusual. It was thick, electric, and almost stifling. Buckingham Palace is used to keeping secrets. It was all of a sudden that King Charles Roman III, the king who had waited a lifetime to wear the crown, was struggling with an illness that none in the court etiquette could bring under control. It was the chemotherapy that caused him to become pale. The ceremonial gloves were unable to conceal the tremble that was present in his fingers. And every appointment that was postponed reinforced a single question that reverberated from Fleet Street to the furthest corners of the Commonwealth. If the king falters, who becomes the true ruler, the ascension of the heir apparent? The response was in principle self-evident. The Constitution stipulates that the Prince of Wales be successful, that the royal calendar is peaceful and continues to function, and that the machinery of the crown does not stop for sentimental reasons. Within the confines of Clarence House, the personnel started hush conversations about a soft handover. Some of the journals that had been set aside for Charles were secretly transferred to his oldest son. When briefing documents arrived at Kensington Palace, they were not only branded with the cipher PW, but also with a more sinister notation for regional. This was a veiled suggestion that Prince William was being road-tested as the de facto head of state. William, who was 41 years old at the time, compartmentalized it, which is something that Windsor heirs have been taught to do for 1,000 years. During the day, he would cut ribbons, shake hands, and make encouraging words about his father's excellent spirits. During the night, on the other hand, the prince organized a war room. It was discovered by the Curters that new individuals were entering apartment 1A via the side door. These individuals were attorneys from Miss Condea, the same legal giants who had previously battled on behalf of Princess Diana during her divorce. William was putting together an evidence squad, and he was determined to map every pressure point, financial, legal, and personal, that might potentially undermine the transfer. Their presence indicated only one thing: William was looking for proof. One of them was a forensic accountant who had investigated the laundering of millions of dollars for a war crimes tribunal, and another was a strategist who had just completed 3 campaigns for prime minister. The counterintelligence operation took the form of succession planning Camilla's quiet kingdom. Queen Camilla, a person who has been featured in tabloids for a long time as both a villain and a conqueror, was the one who stood between the prince and his destiny. Although she had been married to Charles for 20 years, Camilla had finally managed to escape the ghosts of her past, at least in public. The spectators saw a grandma with loving eyes who advocated for literacy and shelters for victims of domestic abuse. Only a select handful were able to see the power that she exerted inside the sick room. Instead of the Privy Council, the doctors made their first report to Elizabeth. Aides arranged the infusions of the king in accordance with her timetable. In the event that Charles was the human heart of the monarchy, Camilla had become its pacemaker. This was not an academic piece of authority. The rhythm of succession was influenced by each and every decision that she made. Camilla overcame her own concerns and allowed Charles to go because she was persuaded that public exposure was the greatest sign that the monarchy was stable. This was the case when Charles insisted on attending an Easter service many weeks after a session of chemotherapy. According to some who were privy to the matter, however, the decision was made for a different reason. The longer Charles remained physically on the throne, the longer Camilla maintained the formal style of Her Majesty. It is possible to defend titles after earning them, but maintaining significance requires consistent performance. Tatty was a secret among Camilla's acquaintances that she had no desire to become politically active, and that her only concern was for the well-being of her husband. However, the rumours continued to circulate. Why did she exert such a great deal of effort to ensure that her 5 grandchildren will serve as pages of honour during the coronation in 2023? Why was it that her children, Tom and Laura, were now attending state dinners on a regular basis? Why had a civil service working committee been invited to investigate whether the sovereign might award non-royal descendants an indefinite right to stay at Windsor? Some people believe that this was done at her recommendation, while others disagree. A parallel court was forming around her, consisting of respected former advisers to the late Queen, constitutional academics, and even the counsel for the Prince of York, all of whom were eating discreetly at Clarence House. The Diana file is revealing. William ruled by spotlight, and his weapon of choice was the truth that had been suppressed since 1995. If Camilla ruled by shade, then William lived by limelight. The event that set off the chain of events occurred in March, when the locks on the BBC archives were opened, revealing memos that detailed how journalist Martin Basher had fabricated financial accounts and used Princess Diana's anxiety in order to arrange that fatal interview with Panorama. Williams saw the leak as both a vindication and a provocation during the event. A legal meeting that took place at midnight concluded with a single demand: a permanent prohibition on the rebroadcasting of the show. The deceit that brought this interview to pass destroyed my mother's peace of mind and deepened her isolation, he said in his statement the next day, which was dripping with a wrath that he had not seen since the burial of his mother. On the internet, there was an outpouring of sympathy. The hashtag number Diana Deserve better trended in 45 countries. A more significant development is that the Culture Committee of Parliament has begun hearings investigating allegations of editing misconduct at the BBC. Overnight, the heir apparent was no longer just protecting his mother. Rather, he was taking on the responsibility of transforming a national institution and, by extension, redefining the accountability of the royal family. However, reform is a sword with 2 sides at once. Due to William's campaign, the love triangle story that the palace had spent 20 years attempting to stifle was once again rekindled. On the front pages, the unobtrusive bracelet that Charles had given to Camilla in the 1980 was brought back to life. The reemergence of old Curters was accompanied by descriptions of hushed phone conversations and tears shed behind gilded doors. During the Commonwealth Day ceremony, lip readers were able to capture Camilla, advising William that his late-night legal theatrics had the potential to damage his relationships with important media friends. According to the allegations, he responded by saying, "The monarchy stands taller when it faces truth, not when it hides." A combined engagement that Camilla had planned with William was called off the next morning. She was officially cited as having a prior commitment. On an unofficial level, the ice was able to be felt across the whole long library. The Times discovered a fresh leak at the same time that tensions were rising. It said that royal medics had explored putting Charles on a substantially restricted schedule for 18 months. They came to the conclusion that there was a moderate probability that prolonged treatment would drain his cognitive efficiency. In accordance with the Regency Act of 1937, the real power would be transferred to the Councillors of State, with Prince William becoming the first of the Councillors of State. There would be no constitutional authority held by Camilla. In a matter of hours, William's administration made a request for complete access to the sovereign's official papers, a measure that has traditionally been performed only in the event that a regency is about to take place. According to a late-night message sent by the palace, the king continues to conduct state business. This was a response to the previous statement. Despite this, The message did not mention any upcoming appearances, and the prospects of a regent declaration occurring before the end of the year were significantly reduced. Camilla responded to this. She then announced a surprise state reception honoring the British Red Cross, which was an occasion that vitally needed the king to preside in person. She then called the Lord Chamberlain. Charles, even though he was slimmer, managed to pull it off, and he did it with a smile on his face. Camilla smiled as she placed her gloved hand gently on the king's elbow, creating a picture that was as ambiguous as it was staged. William stood on each side of him, behaving in a manly but remote manner. Camilla, Queen Consort's gambit. There was a widespread belief that Camilla had secretly inquired with lawyers from the Privy Council about the possibility of amending the Regency Act in order to provide a queen consort with limited administrative power in the event of a health emergency. Academics laughed at us. However, the fact that such a plan was made available to the media demonstrated that different groups inside the palace were actively briefing against one another. Camilla allegedly considered recreating the old title of Duke of Clarence for her son Tom Parker, B.S. According to another article that was leaked, William was deeply unimpressed, and he cautioned his advisers that the crown cannot afford another nepotism scandal. Over the course of many years, Kensington Palace has issued its first official rejection, stating no new peerages are under consideration, Prince William's shocking revelation. William took control of the story just as the tension reached its climax. His decision to offer two top journalists an off-camera interview was made in accordance with the tight Chatham House norms. The final product depicted a prince who was haunted by the spectre of history repeating that it had happened again. It was stated that William had ordered a forensic analysis of the earnings of the Crown estate and was considering the possibility of directing a portion of future profits to mental health facilities throughout the country. This assertion was a clear echo of his mother's humanitarian philosophy. Traditionalists blanched in response while reformers cheered. For the first time, a significant survey revealed that more than half of the people living in the United Kingdom are in favor of William taking up his responsibilities immediately should the king's health significantly decline. Additionally, the leak said that William's legal team was in the process of putting up a private dossier that was internally referred to as Project Balmoral. The objective was to compile a record of every occasion in which sensationalism had put a royal life in jeopardy, starting with Diana and concluding with the press encirclement of Princess Catherine when she was undergoing treatment for cancer. It has the potential to revolutionize privacy legislation if it is disclosed. As William's team implied, an unusual statement was delivered by Harry, who was seeing the event from California. In it, he praised his brother's stance on the accountability of the BBC and hinted that he could offer evidence to Parliament. According to reports, Camilla was furious because an estranged duke had returned to the fray, which threatened to cause her meticulously calibrated court to be thrown off balance. While all was going on, overheard discussions at the café counter were filled with speculation. Was Camilla the last conventional queen of Britain? Does William want to do away with certain titles? Did the secret papers that were kept in the secure rooms of Marlborough House still include recordings of Diana crying over being betrayed? Without being swayed by the commotion, William gave permission to archivists to digitize the private diary entries that Catherine had written while she was undergoing chemotherapy. He made the announcement that extracts will be made available to assist other sufferers. The symbolism was not lost on anybody. He was supplanting the rule of quiet that had been in place at the palace with a philosophy of extreme openness, a crown in the balance. Trooping the Colour is now prepared to take place in London. It is the game of the season in the Curters' parlour to determine whether King Charles will ride, sit in a carriage, or observe from a balcony. The sound of rehearsal trumpets reverberates along the Mall. And there is one thing that cannot be denied. The House of Windsor, which is most often accused of being resistant to change, is already undergoing transformation in plain view of the cameras. While a son is rewriting the rule book in order to avenge the anguish that his mother has endured, a stepmother is safeguarding the legacy that her husband has left behind. And a country watches entranced as the monarchy performs its most delicate operation, which is the transfer of power without using the word. If you pay careful attention, you will be able to detect it in the gentle handshakes that William now gives to the leaders of the Commonwealth, in the forced grins that Camilla flashes at the press pen, and in the frail steadiness of Charles's voice when he talks of our shared future. Somewhere in the middle of these signals, the next reign is already being negotiated. It is a reign in which truth and tradition battle with one another, and the greatest drama may be the desire of the crown to stay both ageless and transparent. At the end of the day, every hush message, every broadcast grin, and every midnight briefing contributed to a single unstoppable narrative. The monarchy, just like the man who heads it, is mortal. William's risk that telling the truth about the past is the most reliable approach to ensure a bright future will determine whether or not it is successful. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for the time being.